בואי כלה, שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום. בואי המלכה, בואי כלה, שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום. החמה מראש, האילנות נסתלקה, בואו ונצא לקראת שבת המלכה. הנה היא יורדת הקדושה ברוחה, ועמה מלאכים, צבא שלום ומנוחה. בואי המלכה, בואי כלה, שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום. בואי המלכה, בואי כלה, שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום. שלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מלאכי השלום. בואי המלכה, בואי כלה, שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום. בואי המלכה, בואי כלה, שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום. שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום.
Shabbat Shalom. Come here tonight. There's a lot of background. There's a lot of background noise. There's been a sort of a heartbreaking week in terms of the news. More children killed. There's been a communication from our leadership today. There's a lot of noise. There's all what's going on in your lives as well. We come into this place, a Shabbat, we set aside time. We set aside time for sacred purpose, to be with one another, to pray, to think about our highest ideals, to figure out how we can bring these of our highest ideals into the world. So we're going to let everything else go and just focus on Shabbat, focus on Addison, who will become a bat mitzvah tomorrow morning, and focus on our dreams and our highest aspirations. We turn to page 6. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. And we read together, now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. We begin by bringing light into the world, more light, and for that we invite the Getz family in honor of Addison's bat mitzvah tomorrow. Page 2 in our Siddur. It doesn't work. I've tried it every single week. Whatever. I just don't. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Mazel tov to all of you. And happy birthday, Addison. Thank you. Go ahead. We'll be calling Addison up at the end of services for Kiddush. Right now we turn to page 24 to welcome in the Shabbat messengers of peace.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Olachem Lishalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni Lishalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidkem Lishalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn to page 13, Psalm 96, Shir Chadash, new song.
Shiru Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru Adonai shir chadash, Shiru Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru Adonai shir chadash. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru Adonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
On page 19, from Psalm 29, the last words, Adonai oz le'amo yitain. May God grant strength to God's people. Bless our people with peace. turning the page, Lecha Dodi, and we welcome in the Shabbat presence. Verses or paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9.
שמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה לך דודי לקראת כלה הנה שבת לקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה הנה שבת לקבלה Shabbat, לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת לקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה הנה שבת לקבלה התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי אורי אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה הנה שבת לקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה הנה שבת לקבלה Shalom, עטרת פניי, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה
Since you're standing up, please take a moment to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. Move around, keep your masks on, introduce yourself to someone new. 92, the Psalm for Shabbat. Page 22, Psalm 9. Page 26, Chetzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה יעלם הדברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמירה ומברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשו אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן מעלמה ואמרו אמן.
Please rise and body your spirit for Baruch Hu, page 28.
Lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai lai ya lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai lai lai
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhma poteach sha'arim uvitvuna meshana itim machalif et hazmanim umesader et kochavim b'mishmerotehem barakeh kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or ma'avir yom umevi layla umavdil ben yom uvein layla Adonai tzvaot shemo. Achai v'kayam tamid yimoch aleinu leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai hamari v'aravim.
The prayer right before Shema is Ahavat Olam, and it talks about God's love for us, instructing us with Torah as a gift, have a path, knowing which way to go, which way, how to live. It's considered a gift of love. And so this evening, inspired by that idea of God's love, We're inspired to love one another, and the poem on the top of your sheet is called "When the World Falls Apart." When the world goes mad, become wildly kind to everyone. Everyone, 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 my love. You can't control much, but you control how you treat others in these breaking news, heartbreaking times when nothing feels certain. Let your raw kindness be a certainty. Allow your compassion to become a North Star, stamped up in the sky for others to follow back home. Continue with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We continue on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיך. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
On page 39 at the top of the page. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. And together we read, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Vichamocha on page 40.
Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Ashkivin Adonai Eloheinu Yeshalom.
God to spread over us a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace, and to protect us. Nighttime, things are more frightening, or any time in our lives when things are more frightening. We ask God to guard our going out and our coming in. And we ask God to protect us and to keep us safe. We think especially now of those members of our community, our family, our friends who are in need of healing, also healing of body or healing of spirit. Tonight we hold in our hearts Ira Altschuler, Martha Berg, Howard Bregman, Ryan Cohen, Fern Diamond, Phyllis Didion, Anne Fay, Judy Forrest, Ken Franklin, Piers Haggard, Aryaman Harlalka, David Mordechai HaKohen, Linda Jube, Naum Kaplan, Carol Kaufman, Sylvia Kasparowski, Al Camper, Lee Kramer, John C. King, Albert Lepre, Susan Lother, Hindasara Batkhana Peril, Sophie Matiash, Joanne Mandel, Jonathan Miller, Edward Mims, Joanne Newman, Lev Podorovsky, Helen Faye Rosenblum, Mike Rosen, Peter Rosenfeld, Oliver Scheibel, Adam Schusterman, John Spear, Bill Stein, Jan Stoller, Jackie Student. Other names for Misha Baruch tonight for healing? Yisberach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leahu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et HaCholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal all those who are ill.
Baruch atah Adonai haborei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleim ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai haborei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleim ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleim ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
Top of page 44, remind ourselves of our covenant with God to keep Shabbat.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We turn now to the tefillah, which begins on page 46. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'kornei HaKol, Ve'zocher Chasei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei bneihem, למען שמו ביעבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, ישני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, נאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. We continue the tefillah on our own through page 62.
Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat, we reach the end of the book of Leviticus. In some ways, we can congratulate ourselves for having made it through it. Its long chapters and verses describing in great detail, too much detail sometimes, the rules and regulations our people are to follow. After weeks of reading about the laws of the ancient priesthood and sacrificial rites at the temple, the rules for purity and holiness, this week we find out that there are consequences to our behavior. Whether or not we adhere to the expectations set out for us will determine if we are to be worthy recipients of God's blessings or scorned and abandoned by God's curses. That sounds dramatic, and it is. The words of blessing are eloquent, beautiful, feel-good rewards for staying true to God's wishes. In essence, if we, the people Israel, follow God's decrees and keep God's commandments, there will be rain, plenty of fruit, peace, subsequent generations, and the divine presence will be in their and in our midst, making us free. And the curses, they include some of the most horrific things imaginable, not to be shared here in polite company. But with all the makings of a true sci-fi horror or dystopian film, if you are brave enough to read them, it is clear that the consequences for not observing God's rules are severe. In fact, it has long been accustomed to read this section of the text in a low voice and as quickly as possible, as if to rob the words of their terrifying power. But no matter how the words are read, they are fearful and fearsome. This passage is meant to scare us. It is in this week's Torah portion to scare us into action. Backing up a bit, we see that this is not to be read as blessings and curses. I think it's to be noted as blessings or curses. Our actions or inactions determine which it is. And yet, it is not as black and white as it seems. This is not actually an indication of whether we will succeed and thrive as we bask in God's glory, or wither and fade away as the curses befall us. Our fate is not sealed. We have the power to choose our own path, and most importantly, to act and change its course. This may seem like an inherent principle, something we should just know, but our commentators treat this as a lesson we have yet to learn. Some have referred to this portion as a sort of parenting manual, meant to teach that behavior, good and bad, has consequences. In fact, I know that Addison has more to say about that tomorrow, and we look forward to learning from her. Our commentators note that the curses are written using an all too familiar formula. If you don't stop doing that, I will have to, or if you don't start listening to me, you won't be able to. I know I have uttered those words to my own children. Perhaps you have done the same, or even remember hearing them from the mouths of your own parents or relatives. At any rate, sometimes the threat of disciplinary action or knowing that something is being taken away is motivation enough to change our behavior. And the times when we don't heed that warning, finding out that we have lost a privilege or missed out on something that was important to us can be motivating too. Thus, the curses are meant to be a depiction of a future we will bring upon ourselves if we don't do the right thing. They are meant to scare us into wanting to do something different. So, the curses are stoppable. We are not forced to continue down a path if it is the wrong one to take. We are responsible for our own behavior, and thus we can change the way that we act. But our freedom to act comes with responsibility for our actions, and yes, for the consequences. Rabbi Harold Kushner, in his book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, writes, Our being human leaves us free to hurt each other, and God can't stop us without taking away the freedom that makes us human. In other words, human pain is not the result of God rewarding or punishing, but it is the result of human beings harming one another. Kushner puts the matter this way: human beings can cheat each other, rob each other, and God can only look down in pity and compassion at how little we have learned over the ages about how we as human beings should behave. So, are the terrible things described in the Torah actually going to happen? Probably not in the way they are described. But the passage does serve as a metaphor for the kind of destruction we may bring upon ourselves if we continue to turn away from what we know is right. The blessings end with God promising to break the yoke of oppression and set us free. It would make sense then that the curses would end with the opposite: eternal enslavement, perhaps? But no, there's an unexpected twist. The curses end with the following: yet even then, when they, the people, are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them or spurn them so as to destroy them, annulling my covenant with them. For I, the Eternal, am their God. I will remember in their favor the covenant with the ancients, whom I freed from the land of Israel in the sight of the nations to be their God. I am the Eternal God. Our ancestors made a deal with God. We would do our best to live up to God's expectations, and God in return would stay with us even when we didn't. In other words, God does not give up on us, and thus we should not give up on ourselves. We do not have to accept the way things are. We can take the cue from our Torah portion and scare ourselves into action. We can stop the barrage of curses and begin the work of turning them into blessings. How do we do that? Thoughts and prayers are not enough. God is clear in the text. Action brings blessing. I invite you to turn to the prayer sheet you were handed when you came into the sanctuary this evening as we read responsively these powerful words written by Rabbi Jack Reamer. We cannot merely pray to God to end war, for the world was made in such a way that we must find our own path of peace with ourselves and with our neighbor. We cannot merely pray to God to root out prejudice, for we already have eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly. We cannot merely pray to God to end starvation, for we already have the resources with which to feed the entire world if we would only use them wisely.
We cannot merely pray to God to end despair, for we already have the power to clear away slums and to give hope if we would only use our power justly.
We cannot merely pray to God to end disease, for we already have great minds with which to search out cures and healings if we would only use them constructively. Therefore, we pray instead for strength, determination, and willpower to do instead of merely to pray, to become instead of merely to wish, that our world may be safe and that our lives be blessed. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Shkach.
Thank you. We turn in our prayer books now to page 278 for Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, the counting of this time that brings us closer and closer to the holiday of Shavuot, when we celebrate the giving of the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al ha-Sfirat HaOmer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer.
Hayom Shnaim V'Arba'im Yom Shehem Shisha Shavuot LaOmer. Today is the 42nd day, which brings us to exactly 6 weeks. We have 1 week and 1 day to go to day 50, the day of Shavuot. Page 282, we rise as we are able for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרה בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכינו זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשיבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Page 294. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and those who have died at this season in years past. On this Shabbat, we remember Stanley S. Barish, Dorothy Chasen, Joseph Indovina, Dr. Grant Julin, Carl J. Kaufman Jr., Sanford Oaks, Betsy Schwartz, Geraldine Stragevsky, and on this week of their yahrzeit, Alan H. Berkman, Norton Berman, Dr. Zega Blockstein, Gilbert Broff, Robert Buck Sr., Eleanor Cohen, Barbara S. Fisher, Brennan Frake, Benjamin Ginsberg, Herbert Goldstein, Sidney Green, Melissa Ann Green, Florence Harrop, Anna L. Kahn, Hope Layton, Phyllis Lormer, Suzanne Lovner, Gladys Ziff Miller, Jody Shensa Novik, Saul Paransky, Molly Rosen, Paul Steiner, Murray C. Thaw, Rose Turbiner, Daniel Leonardo Vodovitz, Pearl Wexler, Rose Wertheimer, Jeanette Whittam. This Shabbat, we also remember those who have died from gun violence. We first remember the victims of the Buffalo Massacre from May 14th. Christopher Braden, Celestine Cheney, Zaire Goodman, Andre McNeil, Catherine Massey, Margus D. Morrison, Hayward Patterson, Aaron Salter, Geraldine Talley, Jennifer Warrington, Ruth Whitfield, and Pearl Young. We also remember those whose names we know from the recent massacre in Uvalde. Navia Bravo, Jacqueline Jackie Cesaris, McKenna Lee Elrod, Jose Flores Jr., Eliana Eli Garcia, Irma Garcia, Uzziah Garcia, Amari Joe Garza, Xavier Lopez, Joyce Carmelo Luvanos, Tess Marie Mata, Eva Morales, Alithia Ramirez, Alexandria Lexi Ania Rubio, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, Leila Salazar, Julia Nicole Silguero, Eliana Cruz Torres, Rogelio Torres. Is there anyone else to add to our yard site list this evening? Zichron livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Yit gadal v'yikadash shemei rabba, v'yalma divarach hirote v'yamlich malchute, b'chayachon uvyomechon uv'chayeducho be'Israel, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shemei rabba mivarach le'olam omei omaya, Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran b'yalma v'imru amen. Yahei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromab Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. Oseh shalom b'mroma, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru.
A few announcements before we conclude our service. First of all, Mazel Tov to Addison as she becomes a bat mitzvah tomorrow. So please come and join her in celebrating and her family. Secondly, there is a Build a Hug drive for the children of Uvalde in collaboration with the Center for Loving Kindness. The 1027 Healing Partnership has connected with the Herbie Ham Activity Center, a community center just 3 miles from the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. This program is collecting donations of stuffed animals and school books appropriate for elementary school age children. All donations must be new, and if you are so inclined to donate, donation locations can be found at both JCC locations in Squirrel Hill and in the South Hills as well through next Friday. Shavuot services will be held at Temple Sinai next Sunday, June 5th, starting at 10 a.m. The service will be in person as well as online through the various YouTube channels and Zoom links of Temple Sinai. So look for those links in this week's or next week's Shalomogram. And today is the last day to register for the June 3rd Congregational Picnic. That's next Friday. And also to order your ice cream. Is it next Friday? Is that the right date? Order today and pick up on Wednesday or at Congregational Picnic. Yes, thank you. It's not clear on here. Okay, today is the last day to order ice cream. If you would like to do that as part of the fundraiser for the garden, the Biblical Botanical Garden. Today is the last day to order. You could pick that up on Wednesday the 1st, which also happens to be the opening day of the garden, so that would give you a chance to come see it, or at the picnic on the 3rd, which you have to RSVP for if you haven't done that yet. A lot of things to remember. Am I forgetting anything? Yes, and Sunday, is when Shavuot services are, but Saturday night, you're also invited to join us for the Tikkun Leil Shavuot. It is a tradition to study all night. We won't make you stay up all night, but please join us at the JCC beginning at 10. I'm looking at Rabbi Schiff for clarification. 10 a.m. I know that 10 p.m. There's too much information being thrown at me right this second. 10 p.m. on Saturday night next week at the JCC. I know that there will be scholar options, chances to study with different rabbis and educators in the community beginning at 10, 11, and 12. I am leading a 12 o'clock slot, so come keep me awake by studying with me, please. Thank you. Thank you to Luke for helping us with our technology, to Molly and Don, of course, for our beautiful music, to Rabbi Henry, as always, to the Getz family for leading us in the candle lighting, and again to Addison as we invite her to come forward to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ava uvratzon hini lanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom tehila lemikra et kodesh, zecher litzia Mitzrayim, ki vanu b'charta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim,
v'shabbat kodecha, ve'ava uvratzon, hinhatanu.
Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lachem min haaretz.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Please come up and get a piece of challah. Remember to bring your prayer books with you as you leave. Here you go.
Sure. The best challah here.